Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're excited to talk about paving conversations with incredible women who are shaping our world with author Maya Sharma. If you have any questions, please post them in the chat and we'll get to them at the end of the program. But let me go ahead and introduce our author. Maya Sharma is a senior at Eastside Preparatory School in Washington State and has won several prizes in science, math, essay writing, and arts at school in state and national competitions. She loves to travel around the world, read books, play piano, and spend time with her friends. Maya has been writing for her school newsletter since she was in the 4th grade and has tackled topics of technology, automation, diversity, politics, and gender equality. And she won first place in a statewide essay competition organized by the World Affairs Council. Her essay on strategies and solutions to solve the global water crisis focused on strategies that every community can embrace. And she's also the captain of the school's robotics team. Welcome, Maya. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, thank you for having me. And thank you everyone in the audience for being here.
Okay, so before we get into the book, are you up for a little lightning round of the game Would You Rather?
So let's do it.
All right. Okay, so I got 5 questions here, all right?
Okay.
So number 1, would you rather drop all your stuff in the hallway during passing period or drop your lunch off in the tray in the cafeteria?
I would drop my lunch on the tray.
Okay. Number 2, would you rather A, be rich or B, be famous?
I'd be famous. Well, actually, I could be famous for the wrong reasons. So I'd rather be rich.
Okay. Number 3, would you rather tell your parents you made an F in a class or tell your parents you wrecked their car?
That I wrecked their car? That's a good one. That I got an F. Yeah, okay. I'd go with that one.
We're scared of the consequences there, huh?
We are.
Okay, 4, would you rather give up social media for a year or give up TV and movies for a year? Which one do you like better?
Oh, I could not give up TV and movies, so I'd go with social media.
Okay, so what's your favorite TV show?
My favorite TV show is, The Great British Baking Show. I just cannot get enough of it.
I really love that show too. Okay, so our last question is, would you rather A, be a super speedy reader or B, be a super speedy writer?
Super speedy writer. There's so many times when I'm writing and I'm like, if I could write faster, it would make my life so much easier.
Yes, well, that definitely makes sense since you wrote a book, right? Okay, so thank you, Maya, for letting me get inside your brain for a moment. But let's get into your book, okay? So my first question for you is, with all the other activities that you have going on, when did you decide that you wanted to write a book?
Yeah, so there were a couple of events that made me realize that I wanted to write a book. One of them was the Women's March, which was way back in 2017. And I was in middle school at the time. So just as a middle schooler, being in such a new environment, like I'd never been to Women's March before or anything like that. So it was a very empowering moment for me, and definitely as a middle schooler, very eye-opening to this concept of gender inequality and girls empowerment and women leadership, and also the downside, sexism, sexist stereotypes and all that. And I was also writing for my school newspaper at the time. And for that, I needed to publish for the next issue that was coming out. So I decided to reach out to my local mayor, who had just been elected. And we had a great interview, and she was actually the one who suggested that I reach out to a couple more local female politicians. So I took her advice and I interviewed both of Washington's senators, Senator Maria Cantwell and Senator Patty Murray, and Mayor Jenny Durkin and Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal. And then by that time, I decided to branch out outside of politics and like into filmmaking and journalism. And that was kind of the time when I realized that these interviews are actually inspiring my teachers and friends and peers and even myself. So that's when I really made it a much bigger project and had the focus of my interviews be for a book and not the school
Mhm.
newspaper.
Okay, okay. So for anyone that doesn't know, can you tell us what your book is about?
Yeah, so the book is called Paving, Conversations with Incredible Women Who Are Shaping Our World. I have it right there and right there. And it's a collection of 25 interviews I did with 25 Wonder Women, as I like to call them, because they are. And they aren't just any interviews with anybody. These are interviews with women leaders in their domains. So, like Dr. Janet Yellen in economics, Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern of New Zealand, Dr. Jocelyn Bell Burnell, who's an award-winning astrophysicist. So there are all these women leaders in like sports, journalism, filmmaking, Nobel laureates, astronauts. CEOs. So they all talk about they bring a very unique perspective on this idea of gender equality, and they also share stories of how they got to where they are today through facing several obstacles and
Mhm.
challenges and hardships because of their gender, and in some cases even because of the minority group that they're in. And it's not all super sad about like challenges and obstacles. They also share advice that they've gleaned from their life experiences, as well as their viewpoints on certain world ideas.
Mhm. So you talk to a lot of diverse people in different places. So how did you get those interviews with them?
So it was definitely a project in and of itself, like under
Mhm.
the book, within the book. So I had to research a bunch of women leaders in different categories like sports and journalism and filmmaking, like I
Mhm.
talked about, and then do a ton of research on them, do my homework, and just reach out to them. And I am super happy with the product.
Mhm. Can you tell me about your very first interview for the book?
So my first interview was with Mayor Mary Lou Polly. And actually at the time, I had no intention nor any idea that it would be for a book. It was actually for my school newspaper at the time. And I had actually met her before doing the interview. And so she just popped in my head for article for the school newspaper. And yeah, after that interview, like I said earlier, she suggested that I reach out to a couple more
Mhm.
female leaders, and everything just kind of spiraled from there and turned into 25 interviews. So I'm very
Mhm.
grateful for her and her
Good,
support.
good, good. So whose role, whenever you talk to these ladies, whose role really shocked you?
That's a good question. I think because I had gone into this project really not knowing anything about gender equality, I was kind of learning more as I went on. Um, and so each unique story that these women share shocked me, if you will, because they were all very eye-opening. So, for example, Dr. Jocelyn Bell Burnell, who's an astrophysicist, discovered pulsars, which are some of
Mhm.
the most important stars in the universe. And so, for those of you who don't know, even though she discovered pulsars, her mentor, Anthony Hewish, got the credit for it. And not only the credit, but actually the Nobel Prize as well. And so that story, just hearing that was very shocking. And I actually got to be on a panel with her on stage a few months ago, and she was talking about how when she used to enter the classroom as like one of the only girls in her classroom, all the boys in the room would like hit their desks and whistle and clap and just make super loud and obnoxious noises to, of course, embarrass her. And so, I mean, I'm pretty sure you are surprised by hearing that. I was
Mhm.
definitely surprised. And so, just hearing all these stories from all these women and how sexism is, of course, in all fields, but hearing their unique perspectives on sexism and gender inequality was very eye-opening and altogether very shocking.
Now let me ask you this, okay? Because one of the things that I really liked about your book was the very first line, which was in the introduction, and you said, "I have always been a feminist." So I'm wondering because you know, with her, what she experienced, why is feminism like extremely important to you? Like, where have you seen the inconsistencies?
Yeah, feminism is incredibly important to me and should hopefully be important to everyone.
Mhm.
It's uh, you know, as you know, we have gender inequality in like all areas, politically, socially, economically. And so it's incredibly important to achieve gender equality and representation and diversity in all areas.
Mhm.
And for me, I like to use it as kind of like a segue or like a shoot off into women in STEM, which is a
Mhm.
topic that I'm very close to because I am a woman. I consider myself to be a woman in STEM, and STEM is actually a very it covers a lot of different fields, and so STEM is definitely an area where we don't have uh, enough women in. And so to be able to advocate for girls to enter STEM and also to keep women in STEM when they're later in their careers is incredibly
Mhm.
important to me, and why I am so passionate about women in STEM and like to talk about it all the time to everybody. I could go on for hours talking about how to achieve gender equality in STEM. But I mean, women in STEM is just one concept or one topic under the umbrella term of feminism. There are,
Mhm.
of course, many other areas where we need to bring more women and have more gender diversity and representation. But I want to say one more thing. I like how you brought up the first line, because that line I think I wrote when I was in between interviews. So I was I don't even know when I wrote it, but yeah, it was sometime between interviews when I didn't really know what feminism truly meant and what
Mhm.
it meant to be a feminist. And so looking back at that now, hearing that sentence now, as someone who's done a ton of research and heard from all of these incredible women and been talking about feminism and women in STEM, my perspective on it has definitely changed. And I've learned a lot more about what feminism means and what it means to be a feminist, and how we can work all together to achieve gender equality. And so that's another, just learning more about it is another reason why I'm so why feminism is important to me.
Mhm. Now, was there any other, because whenever you talk to the ladies that you interviewed, because you talked about, you know, in STEM, with STEM, is there any other place that they talked about where there was gender inequality?
Like outside of STEM,
Mhm. Mhm.
I mean, there's gender inequality everywhere, not just in STEM, but STEM is a very, I mean, it's science, tech, engineering, and math. And so it covers a lot of different fields, covers everything from space and astronauts to
Mhm.
economics to CEOs and women leaders in high tech, but also in places of government, in journalism, in the corporate world, and of course, I mean, I guess STEM can work its way into the corporate world, but there's definitely a lot of gender inequality in all fields. I mean, that if there's a story in every 25 interviews that talks about how these women have faced how they face sexism
Mhm.
in their through their own stories. And I think that's a very important thing to understand, that sexism and gender inequality isn't just in STEM, it's
Mhm.
in all fields.
Mhm. Now, for a minute there, you talked about how your perception had changed, you know, on some things. So, which interview actually changed your mind and perception on about something?
So I don't think, I mean, I wouldn't say there was one singular interview,
Okay.
but there were some, like Dr. Jocelyn Bell Burnell, for example, that was just very eye-opening to, I mean, as a young high school student, I of course didn't really understand how much sexism that these women have to face because of their gender, and then of course some cases because of the color of their skin or marginalized group that they identify with. So I wouldn't say there was one specific one that changed my perception, but altogether, and hearing all these stories all together, and then also talking about it now and doing a bunch of research, that altogether has, I wouldn't say changed my perception, but helped me learn more, like add to my knowledge of what feminism really means.
So another thing that should be noted about your book is that you interview women who were the first to do something awesome, in their field. Can you read is there a particular passage that you really like in the book? Are you able to read it?
I do have a passage, and
Okay.
it's a good thing I have my book here.
Uh-huh.
So this is from the introduction. Just give me a second here to flip through. But this introduction is when I'm describing going to the Women's March and how eye-opening and how much power I felt just being in that type of environment. Sorry, I'm just finding the page.
That's okay.
All right, so I'll start reading. So once again, this is from the introduction. I've always been a feminist. I have always believed women are equal to men. I've always questioned the ignorant belief that women are less intelligent and capable than men. I've always wanted to make change in the world. Sitting in my chair at my desk with a terrible posture and dim lighting for a project, I scrolled through the latest articles of women being poorly treated in Eastern Europe. I keep asking myself over and over again, why? I never quite found a way to express my feelings for this until one fine morning in 2017, January 21st, 2017, a Saturday. My dad had told me 2 or 3 days prior to the 21st that there was going to be a women's march. Though I truly supported the causes, I was never quite fond of marches. I responded to my dad, I have too much homework, I don't want to go. But the next day, he somehow convinced me and we drove to Seattle. It was a very cloudy day, as it always is in Seattle during the winters. Bundled up in layers of clothing and warm garments, we walked to the march. Since we'd never done a march before, we just jumped in the middle of the march to the Space Needle, Seattle's iconic landmark. And we started walking. I was wowed. I was amazed. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I know that when people have a passion for things, they do whatever it takes to get there. But honestly, I'd never seen anything quite like what I was seeing that day. All around me, men, women, children, friends, and even the people that worked inside the nearby stores had come out on a cold Saturday to this women's march. Big signs and banners encompassed me. No one is free when others are oppressed, one of the signs read. Respect our existence or expect our resistance, another read. Hear me roar was one of my favorites. No words, picture, video, or sign will ever be able to represent what I felt that day. We made our way through the crowd of 175,000 people. Yes, that's right, 175,000 people. So, as you can tell, I was quite amazed by this crowd. However, I still kind of wanted to be at home on my chair working on my homework. But then the wave came. Not the wave that you see at football, basketball, or baseball games, but the screaming wave. It started in the back of the parade, and a few minutes later, people only a few feet behind me were screaming. I freaked out thinking somebody was hurt, but as I turned around, I saw smiles on their faces, on all their faces. Then the people that were right on my tail were screaming as well. I turned right, people were screaming. I turned left, people were screaming. I didn't know what to think of it, but I didn't scream. I looked up at my mom, who had also come, and she was smiling. She saw my face and started laughing. What was that? I asked her. I have absolutely no clue, she responded. I looked at my brother, who had the same reaction as me, confused. Whatever that was, I have got to join it next time, I thought to myself. So within a matter of minutes, I started hearing the scream wave again. And when the wave of screams got to me, I screamed, but it wasn't restricted. It wasn't that scream you do when you get new clothes or a Christmas present or the joy of your uncle and cousins coming over. It was something else. I let all my emotions out. Everything that I had, all the anger I'd collected from reading women, mothers, and sisters being mistreated, being taken advantage of and abused because they were female. All the sadness I jumbled up into a heavy rock of emotions that sat in the corner of my stomach, and all the happiness I'd gotten from seeing all these people at the Women's March to support women, it all went into that scream. I screamed at the top of my lungs. Slowly, one footstep after another, I was becoming more and more excited to be there. So that's my little passage from the introduction that I really enjoy, because I think it really embodies and tells this beautiful story of how empowering the Women's March really felt as a middle schooler being there.
Yeah. Yes, thank you so much for, I really love your introduction. So thank you so much for reading that.
Yeah.
So I have another question for you. Are you planning to write any other books?
You know, right now, Tangi, I'm trying to graduate high school.
You're just trying to graduate. Okay.
But really, if I would love to write another book, but the thing with Paving is I never intended on writing a book in the first place. Like, I wasn't much of a bookworm or a writer or really interested in literature, but it was just these beautiful stories that I was reading and hearing as I interviewed all these women. And I mean, there was no way I couldn't, I had to share this with more people than just my peers and teachers at school. And so it kind of just came along. It kind of came to me. And I didn't like wake up one day and decide, today we're writing a book. The idea more, it came to me. And so if there's another topic that I am inspired by to write about, of course I'll write a book. I absolutely loved doing these interviews, and I don't know if I'll do more interviews. I don't know if there will be a Paving sequel or if it will be something completely different, but I know that I will continue writing about topics that I am very passionate about because that's important to me.
Good. And so my last question is, if in the future, if another person wants to write a book like this one and calls you and is like, Maya Sharma, can I please interview you? What do you hope your story will be?
I absolutely love that question. It's so beautiful because it's such a full circle question. So if that ever happened, I'm going to imagine if that would happen. That would be so cool. But I really hope my story continues talking about the work that I've been doing to advocate for girls in STEM and, more importantly, gender equality, because that's just, I really hope that I am able to make tangible change in that front, because, I mean, come on, people, it's 2021. Like, gender equality shouldn't be that difficult to understand. So it's just so obvious to me that we need gender equality and representation and diversity in this world. So I really hope that my story includes tangible change in that front. And then on the academic side, like we were talking about earlier, I am very passionate about robotics and medicine as well. And so hopefully I can make it to med school. Hopefully I can make it out of med school too.
You'll do it. You'll be great, Maya. Was there anything else that you would like to add that I didn't ask? Anything at all?
I just hope that all the readers in the audience really are inspired by the stories in this book and can take something away from it, because even after staring at this book for 3 years, there's always something that I find that's super inspiring to me. And so I hope that you get the book and get something inspirational out of it, because that was my intent with the book. So I really hope you enjoy.
And what do your parents think about you having your own book out and your little brother?
They, okay, well, my brother couldn't care less. He could not care less about me writing a book. My parents, so they've been incredibly supportive, which is great. It's been amazing. So I'm glad I have their support. They're not like, Maya, why are you writing a book? You're only 17. But they've been
Good,
very supportive. But yeah, my
good, good, good.
brother,
Well, you tell your brother that you have the book there and he needs to start reading it. Yes.
right? I think you should tell him because he does not listen to a word I say. So
I'll get on that. I'll get on that for you.
great, thank you.
Okay. Well, that brings us to the end of our interview with Maya Sharma. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed our discussion. We'll post a recording of this program to our YouTube page in the next week or so. So be sure to subscribe to our channel for more great content from the Fort Worth Public Library and turn on those notifications. If you would like to purchase a book, purchase a copy of the book, there's copies available at the Doc Bookshop in Fort Worth. And we have a great lineup of upcoming teen and adult programs events. Please visit fortworthlibrary.org and check out our calendar for more information. Oh, and we also have Paving in our library, a few branches, and you can check it out there too. Yay. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time.
Thank you, Tanji. And thank you, everyone in the audience.
Thank you, Maya.